Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
6:30, I will call the meeting to order. For the next half hour, the board will be down in the wheelwright room conducting 4 board interviews with interested volunteer applicants, and we'll be back to resume our regular business meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Arcus.
And I forgot my bottle and we're got like these tiny.
There you go.
Put
Put
it
it
over here now. Getting up. It's because.
Forget.
Okay, welcome back. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance, and certainly those watching at home. Welcome to the December 9th, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. Ready to begin our regular business meeting after conducting 4 interviews downstairs from 6:30 to 7. And I'll start by introducing the board. To my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
To my left, our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Town Manager, Mr. Russ Dean. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening. And my name is Nico Papakosendis. We'll start with public comment. This is an opportunity for folks who'd like to get up and make comment to the Select Board. We do ask if your comments are relative to an agenda item that you wait until that agenda item comes up. But I will pause if there's any public comment. And there's nobody online. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Next order of business is to review the regular meeting minutes of November 25th, 2024. And I would ask the board if there are any revisions or amendments.
I have none, Mr. Chartrand. I
Nope.
couldn't tell if you
I
were.
did not see anything.
Okay.
Great work, Joanna.
And just as a reminder, there were 3 board members at the meeting, Selectwoman Belanger, Selectman Chartrand, and me. So seeing no amendments or revisions, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 25th, 2024, Town of Exeter Select Board.
So moved.
That's you, bud.
Second, sorry.
So
I'm
motion and a
used to the two of
second.
you doing that.
Any
Thanks for the comment.
comments? Seeing none. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
And I will
Abstentions?
recuse, or abstain, sorry.
Okay. So vote is 3-0 with 2 abstentions. Great, thank you.
Just kick me next time.
We have several appointments, but first I'd like to ask the board to consider a resignation from the Pearpoint Park Commission. Suzanne Stone regrettably has to resign for now due to restriction of time and other commitments that she has. So I would ask the board to consider the resignation of Suzanne Stone from the Pearpoint Park.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion with regret to accept the resignation of Suzanne.
I will second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we thank Suzanne for her work on the committee for the last few months. Okay. We've interviewed 3 individuals for the 250th Celebration Commission. There is no term limit on this, and I think the board, I would ask to consider appointing the 3 that we've interviewed so far. I know Selectwoman Gilman wants to get working on this in January. We have one other board meeting in December, and with the holidays coming up, I would ask consideration for appointing the 3 members that we've interviewed thus far.
I think that's
Favor?
great.
Okay.
I do too.
And we're looking for 6 volunteers at least for this?
Yes.
Okay, and then somebody from the Heritage Commission?
Right.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to appoint the Reverend Dr. M. Heath, Renee Allen Hitzrow, and Kimberly Barnier to the 250th Celebration Commission.
So moved. Second.
Julie second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I would entertain a motion to appoint Marty Kennedy as an alternate to the Planning Board with a term to expire April 2027.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And I would entertain a motion to appoint Kelsey Dunville to the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee as an alternate with a term to expire on April 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to thank all 5 for volunteering. And Mr. Dean, if your office could contact our volunteers and let them know of their appointments.
We'll do that.
Mr. Chair, could I make a quick comment?
Please.
I'm very grateful to these 5 individuals for stepping forward to serve the town as volunteers. We still have openings on commissions, committees, and boards. We are not full up, so if anyone is out there listening that is interested in serving this beautiful town, we would love to talk to you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thanks for the PSA.
Okay. With that, we can jump right into our discussion items. The first discussion item is a sort of placeholder. At our last meeting, our finance director, Mr. Stevens, gave an update on the revaluations, and the board invited him to come back for the foreseeable future for folks that may or may not have questions, or if Mr. Stevens has any further updates for us. So I'll turn it over to you, Corey. Thank you.
I guess I wouldn't spend too much time up here, but good evening, everyone. But I will give you a quick update because there were some to-dos, and it's been busy since we last met. I spoke to both the tax department and assessing, and both agreed that in the last week or so, things have slowed down. Calls have dropped off, and the drop-ins have slowed as well. I'm sure that's not to say that people are resolved to what their bill is, but they're at least, I think we're answering a lot of questions, whether it be through this forum. We had a good article in the paper, I thought, that kind of laid out our meeting and the discussion we had. So hopefully we're getting to folks. The folks I spoke to said, they'd either read the article or watched the select board meeting, and that had, illuminated things for them. You had asked that we put together a quick and easy touch point on the website for folks to click into and get information. So the media team did that. We now have a one-stop or even just a couple of spots on our homepage that you can click on and get all the information you need out of tax and assessing, including, if you're interested in an abatement or exemptions or deferrals. So that's a bit of an easier get to now on the website. We are seeing a lot of inquiries for abatements, particularly in the manufactured home space, like we talked about last time. What I would just remind folks is that if you do intend to file, and thank you.
December 19th.
Pay them, and then if you go through the abatement process, you'll be either credited or refunded, depending on how that goes. And that abatement, the abatement deadline for application is March 1st of next year. And that's really it. We left this open in case there was anybody in the audience that wanted to have a conversation, and seeing none, we just keep trucking on.
So the important dates, Mr. Stevens, December 19th to pay your bill and March 1st to file for an abatement?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I'd like to thank the staff and the employees in both the assessor's office and tax collector's office, as well as your office and you in particular, because I know you've come down to help out and answer folks' questions. And I love your ability to be able to, explain to folks, how, in a way that they can understand. So the board recognizes all of your efforts, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. I had offered to come down to the tax department and spend a little time over the last week or so, but every time they said, no, we've got it. And so I never ended up going down, other than when I go in to see them and occasionally run into someone. But so they're doing a really good job. We've got a really seasoned staff in tax now and in assessing.
Indeed, we do.
It's been really helpful to us.
Good.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Chair, are we going to keep this on the agenda for our next meeting?
I think so.
Yeah, good.
I think so. Okay. Next up, we have the Chair of the Budget Recommendations Committee, Bob Kelly, to present the report of the BRC's work over the last several months. So, good evening, Chair Kelly.
Good evening to all of you. Thank you for having me. Wish I had better news, but the process, the budget process, as you all know, because most of you, if not all of you, were part of it, began in June with the executive team meeting with the various department heads and doing an initial review of their preliminary budgets. We received the budget in September and spent the next 2 months analyzing it and meeting with department heads and staff, as well as the executive team to sort of fine tune the numbers. And then we met multiple times as a full committee and as well as subcommittees to suss out our perspective on the budget that we have presented to you. I put together a small bulletized report, hopefully relatively easy to read. I won't summarize every item because it's posted, I'm assuming, but I'll give you the highlights from our committee's perspective. As, again, you all know, all of the budgets were up somewhat higher than we're used to. Usually we're in the 2 to 3% range. This year we were more in the 4 to 5% range. Some of the key items on the general fund that required that, healthcare costs obviously were a big part of it. We also had to add a fairly sizable amount of money to the IT budget during the process. As most people have heard, there have been a lot of cyber attacks on especially municipal entities, certainly in this country, if not around the world. Fairly easy pickings and also very sensitive and health and safety oriented, water supplies, sewerage, disposal, police and fire activities. And if those, computer systems and management systems are compromised, it can bring a whole community or a whole area to its knees. So the IT department came up with a fairly non-aggressive, but certainly an increased approach to buying some hardware and software that would help us certainly into the future. So that was an unexpected added cost. In addition, as this is a relatively old community, we try to maintain our buildings and our vehicles on a regular basis. We have a vehicle replacement program that has been in place for well over 10 years, and it's worked pretty well. The BRC has sort of pushed back on some things, primarily because we've been short-staffed and contractors have not been available, so we budgeted certain things, but the work just hasn't been done. So we tried to recalibrate the budgets. This past year and going into next year, things are starting to loose up, so we provided a little bit more money for staff to do, again, vehicle maintenance as opposed to buying new vehicles, as well as keeping up on our building maintenance. And then, you may recall last year we added in a fire hydrant fee. For years, this fee had been just a flat $20,000 that sort of covered the cost of providing fire control service through the fire hydrants to the parts of town that were not on the water and sewer system. So there was an additional, let's say, 3,000 households or so that were getting the benefit of fire protection, but weren't really paying for it. And so we reoriented that last year to provide $100,000, effectively a charge from the general fund to the water fund that would allow effectively a payback for the water system and the cost of putting in pipes and running pumps and maintenance and things like that. The recommendation this year was to cut that $100,000 to $50,000, again, as sort of a budget management approach, and the BRC felt compelled to stay the course and continue with the $100,000 a year that had been recommended by our consultants in 2024, or in 23 for FY24. So that was an increase as well. Overall, the BRC added slightly, about $275,000 to the preliminary budget of, which again were for the reasons that we just articulated. We did support the full-time human resources director position as well as a part-time recreation department senior coordinator. We felt that both positions are a long time coming, and I think people, especially in town office, the town offices have been very patient. A lot of people doing double jobs to cover these areas, and we felt it was important to add these labor slots to the roles. One item that is on all three funds, general fund, water fund, and sewer fund, is a continued assessment of the Public Works campus, which does include water and sewer functions. We have looked at a variety of different upgrades out there, a new garage, relocation of various areas, There's a fuel island warrant article. So we're looking at optimizing that area up there. One item that our new Public Works Director sort of brought to everyone's attention, which when you've lived in town for a number of years, you sort of forget, there's really no security up there. I mean, we've just spent $55 million in this new plant, and we have the garage and probably $5 million worth of equipment up there, and there's no fence, there's no gate, there's nothing. So we need to make some changes. The facility was built in the 60s, and that's pretty much the way it functions. So we don't have to scrap it and start from scratch, but we need to start chipping away at improving the Public Works facility out there. So we supported that. Water fund, we actually, because of retirement of some debt and reduced capital outlay, the budget actually went down by 9% this year, which was a welcome surprise because we'd been dealing with double-digit increases for the past several years. So that was a nice bit of news. Won't spend too much time on the water fund, pretty self-explanatory. One item that I did want to stress to the select board, because you'll be discussing it, is we received notice that one of our key operators for the plant will be retiring in early '25. The budget reflected a full funding of that position, and our recent experience is that we don't hire people right away. We just spend a long time searching and getting the right personnel. So it's doubtful that we'll be hiring somebody right away, but we still feel it's important to have that funding in there. But coincident to that, we also funded a fairly large consulting line item in case we have to bring that person back as a bridge to when they retire and we hire somebody new. The BRC sort of thought that's a little double dipping, and so we really minimized the consulting part of it to be just a really small bridge of a few months, which hopefully will spur us on to hiring somebody early in the fiscal year. So we did support just the overall approach and the full funding, but we dialed back the consulting part of it. Sewer fund was up a little bit over last year, mostly due to the fact that the treatment plant that we built in 2019 is now incredibly 5 years old. The good news is that our debt has gone down precipitously in that 5 years, and so every year there's a pretty significant reduction in that. But the buildings are 5 years old, and some of the facilities and the equipment, and so we've had some increases in that requirement to try to keep that plant as modern as it was and sort of representing a $55 million investment. So we did support those increases in those budgets. On the capital improvements program, there are a number of bond articles, I guess the most high profile of which would be a new fuel island out of Public Works. Again, that fuel island's been there since the 60s. The tanks are, I think 15 to 20 years old. So time to make some changes there. Put it in, right now it's basically the entrance to the facility. Then our Public Works folks thought that it'd be worthwhile to relocate it and basically get more modern fuel monitoring equipment and dispensing equipment. So we supported that. And the other big item is the Pickpocket Dam removal project, which has been discussed, I think, quite a bit in your sessions, and we do support that. The good news is that there are several bond articles that none of them will be hitting the rolls until 2026, FY26. So that'll help a little bit from a cash flow perspective next year. The other item that we had strong support for was the new groundwater development project that we are currently looking at, and I think Steve will probably be talking to you here in a minute. A lot of things going on. Obviously, we've been sort of partially funding various activities over the last 2 or 3 years. Coming up for this year, it's a fairly large ask of almost $7 million, but this would be to complete the project, construct facilities and piping, and basically secure long-term water supply, hopefully for the next 40 to 50 years. So we did support that, and a couple of new items that we were asked to review a couple of new downtown electric vehicle charging stations, as well as investigating a styrofoam processing unit for out at the new transfer station. These two items were robustly discussed at our meetings, and in the end, they were, I don't know if they were unanimous, but they were pretty significantly supported by the committee, and I think it's time for Exeter to really take a forefront look at it in these types of things. A lot of people come into Exeter, especially during the summer. Electric vehicles are a big part of that, and recycling is still a big deal that we have to deal with. So we felt it was important to do that. I'd also like to give a shout out to the executive team of the town manager, assistant town manager, and finance director. They spent a lot of time before we even saw the budget of scrubbing it and sort of pushing back to the departments, really fine tuning a budget that we didn't have to do a lot to, and it was it was good. It was worth working with them. I know in the past this has all sort of gone on Russ's shoulders, so I'm sure you were thankful to have some
Very much
support.
so.
And it was good working with everybody, get the finance perspective and the administrative. It was a good process this year. Things were out in the open and openly discussed. It worked out very well. So I guess in a nutshell, there are 11 of us on the committee. I'm sorry, 12 of us this year, and everybody. I was very surprised. A number of new people, and everybody had a voice. Everybody weighed in. A few contentious discussions, and new folks didn't shy away from that discussion. So it's a very good group, very diverse. I think. Hopefully everyone comes back. Well, I know at least one person's not, but most everybody will come back next year, and the process should be equally as successful, I would hope. So thank you again for allowing us to put this together for you, and any questions, certainly I'll...
I have a couple, but first I just wanted to say, going to most of the meetings, it was very inclusive. I thought there were a lot of diverse approaches to vetting the budget, and it was really enlightening and refreshing to see some of the newer folks, really extending their voices and chipping into the conversation. It's in our packet, but if you would, for the public, would you please recognize your committee by name?
Oh, sure. We have, and I'm the chair, Bob Kelly. We also have Liz Canada, Don Cloutier, Andrew Elliott, Anna Grazer, Fran Hall, Amanda Kelly, David Kovar, Dr. Judy Rowan, Chris Suter, Chris Zigmont, and Dr. Anthony Swan.
Thank you.
And many of them are longtime members of the committee, as I am, and it's a good little group. And we enjoy working with you folks.
It is, and we enjoy working with you, and this is, again, it's a very important committee to me, obviously, having served on it for 3 years, and the work that you do is incredibly important. So I'm glad. Thank you for acknowledging everybody by name. Mr. Chartrand, did you have a comment?
Yeah, well, first, I wanted to recognize Don Cloutier for being here tonight. He's a committee member who actually showed up for the presentation, so thanks, Don. It's good to have two members of the committee here.
Someone with my back.
What's that?
Someone with my back.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the new guy. He gets drafted.
He's got the chairs back. I do have a question about the search for additional water sources. The town has approved funds for searching for those sources, and I think they also approved funds for testing a source that we found or negotiated with the academy. That test has been successful? On that site out near
We're actually
Drinkwater?
just finishing up on those tests, so there's some data available, but not all of it. We're really just in the beginning phases of the testing.
Right. So the funds that have been approved so far are for searching, negotiating, testing a site.
Correct.
And now we will turn, assuming the test
We do have enough
completes.
money from last year that once the tests and everything come through, we have to work with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and we wanted to be able to carry over until March to do that. So we do have enough funds to analyze the data and start doing some engineering so that we can keep the momentum going.
The item that would be on the warrant, potentially.
The item to be on the warrant would be then, assuming that the state approves the location and the data, that we would get right into design and construction of the facility.
I understand. So if I could just put a plug in for that, because there's probably no more important thing in this town than clean water and sewer. It's up there. It's how we
And
live.
groundwater is the way to go.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more protected, less prone to, environmental attacks, if you will, either natural or unnatural. And so, yeah, groundwater supplies are very important.
As opposed to surface water supplies, yeah. So I would just love to put a plug in there with the voters that this might be the most important thing on the warrant coming up in March, and I would appreciate your support for it.
I would agree.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions or comments?
I was just trying to count, how many meetings? So other than the Friday all-day meeting, there's 5?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to put in a plug for people to watch these meetings every year, because it's a commitment for a few hours, 5 or 6 meetings. The all-day one, all day. It can end a little early, but the point I'm trying to make is that it's really important for people to take the time to come volunteer, please. And if you can't do that, to at least please watch the meetings, because there's always quite a robust conversation for just about every line item that we have. And what I am fascinated with every year are the new members or newer members who ask questions, and they're all wonderful questions, and we all learn from the answers. And I just hope that more and more people in town will pay attention to our budget process. This is the beginning of it, and it's invaluable. You're going to get a lot of information. And finally, I want to thank everyone who volunteered this year. And what number year is this for you in budget? Am I not
16.
going to embarrass you? For your commitment to the budget process and for chairing it again this
do
year.
enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman, anything?
No, I just, again, thank everyone for their service. I did enjoy the couple of meetings I got to go to, because the interaction was actually, has been growing every year. I think there have been
Yeah.
years when there's been just a bunch of nods, like everyone, okay, yeah, that's okay. So I really feel like it's been, the budget's been well vetted. We probably still have questions about the things they've done too, but I really appreciate the work that went on. I don't have any questions about what you've presented as far as the costs and numbers go, so.
I have no comments other than to really thank the volunteers in this town who spend so many hours having good, detailed discussion, and then our employees and staff who spend a lot of time on this. This is a budget I think that we can all be proud of. It is a budget informed not only by the work that happens in this room and by this body, but also, some of the really important decisions that we are forced to make because things happen beyond our control at the federal level and at the state level. And there are a lot of things that we don't necessarily control. So just want to thank our volunteers, staff, and my colleagues here for all of the work that happens to make this possible.
Thank you. The work you all do is invaluable, but I also want to just point out to folks at home, Bob, that this is sort of a year-round volunteer gig for you. I mean, it's not just during the BRC session. You meet frequently with the executive team, and sometimes I've sat in on those. But it's a year-long process for you as chair,
It is.
and you start the work very early, and that wasn't always done in the past. And I think that when we sit through the meetings. Just that preparation and the extra work that you've been putting in is really noticed and invaluable. So appreciate that. And I also appreciate the feedback that you've given the board on the executive team. And this is something we keep talking about at our meetings, but in the last year, working with our consultant that came in, looking at the reorg, it's nice to get feedback from some of our committees and folks that are coming in and doing work with the executive team that this is working. And I think during the budget process, we also saw that how Mr. Dean and the executive team are working with the leadership team. The department heads are coming together more at the beginning of the budget process, which is making it, I think, a lot more streamlined for you as a committee. So thank you for that feedback. Appreciate that. Mr. Dean, a quick question for you and then just some logistics. The percent increase of the budget, I think, is going to be a little fluid, at least through the next couple of weeks because of health insurance. Could you explain that to the board?
Right. So right now we have, as of today, our today number is 5.58% increase year over year from 25 to 24. And that is due primarily to health insurance changes. So people were undergoing open enrollment right now. So some plans are dropping off, people are going to the buyout, et cetera. And that is what's changing the number. So that's why it is what it is. But it's a little bit better. We were working with some numbers that were a little over 6%, but it's come down quite a bit during the open enrollment period. So we're at a better position today than we were a month ago.
And that's for the general fund, correct?
That's it. Well, it impacts the general fund, water fund, and sewer fund, but primarily that's the 5.58% is the general fund number, which is the largest budget, obviously.
So if there was some good news coming out of the health insurance hike, is that, and even with what we had to approve at our last select board meeting with the 27 weeks, this is actually some good news that number is going to actually bring this down below 6%.
Yes.
We anticipate.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And then logistically for the board, I'd ask everybody to review the budget and review the recommendations from the BRC. We meet again on the 23rd and also January 6th. Before the budget hearing on January 21st. So, Mr. Dean, I'd like that on the agenda for the 23rd and the 6th for the Select Board to be able to review the budget and ask any further questions or make any other recommendations.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else for Chair Kelly? Terrific.
If I
Go
could
ahead.
just add something.
Please.
I'll be here on the 23rd to answer any questions as you dive deeper into it. I will not be here on the 6th or the
Thank you for
21st,
telling
but
us that.
My experience is by that time, everything's pretty set and,
I think so.
people know what they need to know. So, but I will be here on the 23rd.
Okay.
Answer any follow-up questions.
That's great. Thank you for the heads up. So we can, if we have any questions or suggestions or revisions, which I always possible.
Always
The
possible.
23rd. Terrific.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
And Bob, thanks again for bringing up the executive team.
Oh, sure.
Our chair was correct.
Heartfelt. It was a great experience.
It's changes that we've been making, and we're seeing the good part of
Very
these
positive.
changes, so thank you for that.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have Mr. Wynnum, the Economic Development Director, to give us a TIF update. Good evening, Darren.
Evening, Board. I know you guys have a really busy schedule tonight, so I'll try to keep it pretty brief.
Take your time.
Okay.
Speak slowly and watch the acronyms.
Watch the acronyms. So TIF means TIF Increment Financing District. We have great news about this. This has been an extremely successful TIF. Certainly the best one I've ever been involved in. But I think just the fact that we can use this economic development tool so efficiently, so responsibly, and create as much new dollars as we have it's fantastic, and it's only going to keep going. As a matter of fact, we have a couple projects now working with DPW and some other folks that if they do come through, this is on Continental Drive, lots of jobs, lots of tax dollars. So we're hoping that happens. So since the TIF has been in place, which is 2016, it was voted in 2015, and of course the money didn't start coming in until the next year. Since 2016, we've raised $11,843,000, which is great. The current bank balance is $8.28 million in it. Of this amount, approximately $1.8 million is due to pay down the outstanding TIF bond. $1.67 million is earmarked for Epping Road widening and related improvements, and approximately $2.5 million has been set aside for a phase 2 of the TIF road extension of Ray Farmstead Road, and that is the road that goes into the 55 and older condos, and the next piece of it would go up to Scott Carlisle's, and that was in the original TIF. There's some stickiness with that now, so that you're not going to see that here until we get that all solved. So possibly next year, we're hoping. The three things I want to talk to you about tonight is the second phase, which will be next year, of the widening of the road from Continental Drive up to 101. The reason we have to do a amendment to this is because this was originally voted upon in 2020. And our plan was, and we had enough money at the time, the plan was to do a traffic impact and corridor study all the way from 111 Alpha, which is Brentwood Road, all the way to 101, which we did do. And that shows several different iterations of it, like short-term, long-term, et cetera, as we grow. And then as part of that amendment, we had enough money in it to go ahead and do the widening from Continental up to 101, Cronin Road. The problem is COVID hit. So then 4 years later, we try to do it, we don't have enough money. We think, well, geez, we got all this money in here, no problem, we'll just use this money. Well, it turns out, once you put a monetary figure on it, and the voters vote that figure in, you can only go 10% over that amount, which is not enough for us to finish it. So what DPW has done is, has used the amount of money we can to do as much as we can this year, and then we're still waiting on figures from our engineers to find out what the exact final number is to finish it off next year. And so once we have that, I'll have that hopefully within 2 weeks, and you'll see me back with a much more detailed, what is it, that we can vote on. So do you have any questions on that piece there?
Just, let's tease this out a little bit.
Sure.
So the voters approved a certain amount
Yep.
coming out of the TIF funds for the widening of Epping Road,
I believe it was $1 million.
from Continental Drive,
900 for the,
from Continental Drive to 101.
yes, sir.
And we halted because of COVID.
Yeah.
And now the price has escalated,
Yes.
like so many things during
Absolutely.
COVID and afterwards. There's been quite a bit of inflation. So now we need the voters to approve additional monies beyond what they approved. But those monies would come out of the TIF funds. There's no tax impact on this.
No tax impact.
Because that money is already sequestered in the TIF line.
Exactly right.
Okay, so that's important. We need them to approve it, but they're not approving additional tax obligation.
That's right.
The money is in the TIF fund.
Over $8 million, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Okay, two more items I'd like to hit. One of them is, we were discussing this, and we know that there's some other, so TIF money has to be used for public infrastructure in the TIF zone. So we couldn't use TIF money to, say, do the siphons, as an example. But we know there's a lot of other things that public infrastructure that needs to go into the TIF district. For instance, the police station, fire substation, there is our tower, water tower, is 12-inch pipe out to, I believe it's Epping Road, where it drops down to 8, and it runs at 8 inches for a while, and then it goes back to 12. And one of the companies we're talking to right now needs a fire suppression system. They're not getting the pressure they need. We believe that may be why. This is the type of money we think we can use for this. So those are the types of things that, the money's there. And so I'm getting the lawyer to try to explain, can we use it, and can the select board, the TIF advisory board could make it a recommendation, and then hopefully you folks could, if you want to, access that money. So the questions I have for the lawyer are, A, can we do that? B, can the voters just simply, does it have to be project by project, amount by amount, or can they give you folks the right to spend it, just like they do allow you guys to buy and sell property? So I'll have those answers by the next meeting, but it may be something that you guys can look at, and it may help, so. I don't know if you want to discuss that at all. That's all I really have to say about that, but I don't know the answer yet, but I just want you to know I'm digging, I'm trying to find it. So hopefully, Russ and I are trying to.
Yeah, the part of the research that we've done, we actually got some information from the town of Peterborough today that what they did over there is they created some expendable trust funds and earmarked some of the TIF funds for those expendable trust funds and authorized the select board to be agents of those funds, and that passed their town meeting overwhelmingly. So that's one of the avenues that we could look at. But as Darren said, we want to come back on the 23rd and give you a full slate of recommendations based upon what we see. But we're hopeful that we can use some of these TIF fund revenues for these different purposes, all within the TIF district and all for what you'd call qualified expenses.
And that presentation will include the opinion from council?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize. I won't be here on the 23rd, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I can prepare it and whatever.
Yeah, and we can work on it together, and finance director's been involved as well as assistant town manager Roy.
Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
So you're going to get an opinion from council on what is allowable to be used, for the TIF funds to be used. And you're also going to get an opinion from council on whether it's appropriate for us to have the voters approve the select board delegating those funds for projects. I would urge us to be really cautious on this. This tool is so wonderful and so powerful, and we've had such a good experience with it. Let's not cut any corners or do anything that's going to in any way have this tool be viewed by the voters as maybe not the wonderful and powerful thing that it is. Let's be really careful. And in the end, if we have to go to the voters project by project, they've shown an incredible capacity to understand why that's important, and they've supported it every time we've gone to the ballot. So let's dot all the i's, cross all the t's, but in the end, let's if the voters have to be involved, let's trust them, because they've been there every step of the way with us so far.
It may be wise to do that anyway, just because
Yeah.
we can keep doing it year over year.
Yeah.
And spend the money. So however you guys want to do it.
But on the other hand, if they choose to give that power to the select board, let's just be really careful about how we approach that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just doing rough math here, but if we have, I want to be corrected here because I'm going by the language in this first paragraph. The fund has approximately 8.28 million, but then there's a list of amounts that are earmarked. So that 8.28 million is not really it's what we have, but there's
the
about
budget.
maybe 3.5 to 4 million left?
2.5.
2.5. See, I told you I was doing
Correct.
rough math. Okay. So,
However, the TIF is still operating
Yeah.
and it's still growing.
no, I understand, but I'm going by what I'm seeing right here and right now. So, okay.
There will be more money coming into the TIF.
Every year
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Until
you.
it's sunsetted,
until it sunsets.
which needs to happen at some point,
That's right.
but we're not there yet.
So what is our average that it adds every year? Do we have an average?
Doesn't
Do we
know,
have
it keeps
that?
going.
We
Okay.
we have an average, but I would use the latest figure, which I believe is 2.2,
Okay.
2.4 million. 2.8 million.
Okay.
Thank you, Corey.
I just don't like to count money until it's actually in the bank, but okay. Thank you.
One more thing?
One more thing?
One more thing. So the TIP Advisory Board stopped meeting in 2020 because there's nothing for us to discuss. There's nothing happening on Epping Road that we would have any say in or whatever. At the time, there's 5 members of the TIF where they have to be a designee from you folks, so a member of the select board, a member of staff, which is me, and then 3 people that either own property in the TIF zone or own businesses in the TIF zone. So from the beginning, Tom Monahan was on it, Mike Lampert, Dan Chartrand, myself, and John Schaffmaster. In 2020, John Schaffmaster, said, I don't have time, I can't do it anymore, and we hadn't had any meetings, and so then I didn't realize it had to be appointed. That's on me. And so I called Scott Wright, who's just a wonderful business person, and I said, would you be willing to do this? And he said, well, let's go to lunch, and we'll talk it through, tell me what my responsibilities are, which we did do. He said he would like to do that, and we did have one meeting with the 5 of us, and it was posted and everything, but I really, obviously to do it right, you folks have to appoint. If you want, I'm sure he'll be willing to sit down with you folks if you'd like to do that, or if you just feel comfortable appointing him, or however you guys want to handle it. We just got to get one more member.
Yeah. The process is the appointment, isn't it? The application?
Let's take that meeting.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, no, I mean, our policy is we have to interview
Okay.
as a formality, and, we would extend that to Mr. Wright. Do you have a application?
We can get one from him.
Perfect.
Yes.
And we'd be ready, even if you could get it on the 23rd.
Sure.
Okay.
Excellent.
That work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else for me, or?
I just thank you for figuring out that needed to happen that way, despite the fact that he met with us once.
Yeah. I think it's that gentleman over there who figured it out. Yeah.
There you go. The E team again, strikes again.
All
Any
set.
other questions for Mr. Wyndham?
No, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Just a
Darren.
comment. Thank you for your work on this. It has been a huge success, and it will continue to be a success with us being extremely careful and, yeah.
Picking up what you put down.
We will miss you on the 23rd,
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll be in Maine.
but we'll look forward to your memo.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you
thanks,
very
Darren.
much. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks, Darren.
Congratulations on ASU again, Rob.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next we have an update on all of the projects that Public Works has been working on from our director, Mr. Steve Cronin, and I appreciate you coming back, Steve. I think this is really good for the folks at home to hear the progress that you're making. But if I could just give you a quick compliment. I know you've been with us for about a year. And the work that you did with the Budget Recommendations Committee, one would have thought you'd been with us for 10 years. So thank you very much for the work that you did working with the BRC.
Sure, yeah. So just some feedback from me as someone that's new to town. I found the process to be excellent. I know we're not completely finished yet, but I think that the discussions we had with the budget subcommittees were very productive. It was a great forum to have that back and forth, talk through some of our challenges, really see how we're presenting the information, how it's being received, and give us an opportunity to really sharpen our communication ahead of town meeting. So I thought it was just an excellent process all the way through.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
On to project updates. So the town manager's office asked us if we could provide some updates on some of the ongoing projects we have that are in various states of design and construction. We've been working to update our DPW projects page on our website as well. It is a work in progress, but we've tried to refresh some of the information up there. And we'll try to be vigilant about staying on top of that moving forward. I'll step through these quickly, and we can have some discussion on some of the details if you'd like. Webster Avenue Pump Station Force Main Replacement. We started construction on this project in July. We've completed relocation of the gas mains and installed approximately 400 feet of the new force main. Force main installation will be paused for the winter months. The trenches have all been paved, but the ground obviously is not favorable to underground utility installation. So we'll button that up for the winter. The yard piping, the wet well, the meter vault, and all the building foundation work is complete as well. So we're going to move on to the next phase of construction, which is the vertical building construction. So we've received a lot of the materials on site, and the contractor is actively working on that. The good news on this project is that we are currently ahead of schedule, which is great. We are anticipated to have the new pump station online by the end of 2025, and then the project is expected to be fully complete by late spring of 2026. So we've been very happy with the contractor, and we're hopeful that progress will continue on that. Septic receiving. The equipment arrived on site here in town on November 12th, and construction began on November 18th. Currently, the mechanical equipment has been installed. We're working on some of the interior piping this week. Contractor is awaiting delivery of the electrical and the control panels. Right now, we expect the project to be complete by spring of 2025. However, I will say that on other projects, we have seen the electrical and control equipment typically to be the items with the longest lead time. So we're going to keep a close eye on that, but all in all, that project is proceeding well. The intersection improvements at Front Street, Pine Street, and Linden Street are ongoing. Our design consultant continues to advance the design for the roundabout concept. We've determined the property impacts from the final design that we're working on, and we're working to secure necessary easements this month. We have one abutter that we have to secure an easement from. They've been very cooperative, so we're hopeful that we'll get that wrapped up shortly. We did do some inspections on the sewer and drainage systems that determined they are beyond rehabilitation and need replacement, so we added an article to the 2025 CIP for some funding to do that work. If that's approved at town meeting, we anticipate construction will begin in 2025. We hope to have a neighborhood meeting in the coming weeks once we've secured the easements, so we will get that information out to abutters in the public.
Great.
Linden Street Bridge, we bid this project back in January. The bids came in significantly higher than what we had for the existing appropriation. We did attempt to work with our consultant to get some additional bridge aid, but unfortunately, we're unsuccessful in doing so. We have added a request for supplemental funding to the 2025 CIP. So again, that will also go to town meeting for additional funding in February. So if that's approved, we will rebid that project almost immediately and hopefully begin construction later on in 2025. West Side Drive utility improvements. Final design has been submitted to DES for review. Our original project manager, unfortunately, has moved on from our consultant in late November, and they've assigned a new project manager. We did have a meeting with them last week, and they provided us some updates. We are still on track to bid that project this winter, and construction is anticipated to begin in the spring of '25. Over the next few weeks, we'll be working to secure the necessary permits and easements we need for construction. We did get an inquiry today on the project. We'll get the most current plans on the project webpage tomorrow morning, and those will be available for the public. Bob gave you a brief update on the groundwater source. The new production well is in at this point. We did start the 5-day pumping test back on November 13th. That proceeded nicely without any interruptions or mechanical issues. The well monitoring equipment remained in place for a few weeks after the test so that we could look at groundwater recovery out there. Currently, the consultant is working on the final test report, gathering all that data, and that'll be submitted to New Hampshire DES for review in January. There is a public comment period and a public meeting period as well on that. I think we're very optimistic about the results. The yield that we saw is in line with what they had projected. We did the test during a severe drought period and saw a very minimal impact to surrounding wells and properties, which is all very encouraging. So, as Bob said, we have a warrant item for final design and construction. And if that's approved, we should hopefully be able to start construction by late next year. So. Surface water treatment plant conceptual design. We issued a request for qualifications in September. We had a number of firms attend our pre-proposal meeting. However, we only ended up getting one proposal from AECom. We're currently reviewing that proposal, and we have an interview scheduled with them for the week of December 16th. And then we'll make a recommendation to the town manager's office and either bring that to you or decide where to go moving forward on that. So, Darren gave you a brief update on Epping Road near-term improvements. That work, the widening portion of the work began on September 23rd, so the contractor is actively out there and working. We have some drainage work that'll continue this week. They will continue to proceed with construction as long as the weather remains favorable. We've finished the majority of the utility relocations at this point, and mostly we're working on drainage work outside the layout of the road. So we are moving along nicely out there, and we will need that additional TIF funding in order to complete that project in its entirety. We have added a signalized crossing to that project as well, which was not part of the original recommendations. So that's something that is being requested as part of that additional funding. Swayze Parkway turnaround. Construction of the turnaround has been completed. The gates were installed on Friday. We did install some reflective tape on those gates today. We were hopeful to get those open. Get the parkway open today, but we did run into some weather delays. So, barring any other issues, we're hopeful that we'll have it open tomorrow. We plan to issue a press release. We'll put it out on our Facebook page, and then we'll coordinate with the town manager's office to make sure that gets up on the town Facebook page as well. But happy to answer any questions on that if you have any.
I do, or a request. When you issue the press release or prior to, if you could just alert the chair of the Swayze Park trustees, Dwayne Staples, and also make sure that once the gates are up, that he's got a key. He had asked that at the last Swayze meeting.
So we opted to do combination padlocks.
Okay.
So we did give him the code today,
Perfect.
as well as gave a code to public safety. There is a keyed bypass on the locks, so DPW will have a key in the event that there's an issue, but I think we've notified all the important parties at this point, and
You're way ahead of me.
Just a quick follow-up. So when you say it's not open yet, it's not open to pedestrians or not open to
not
vehicles?
open to vehicles.
So pedestrians can now use,
Yes, yep.
got it?
Yep. So we'll put out all the information, hopefully tomorrow, basically, with a map of, where vehicle access and parking is permitted and which areas are open to pedestrians. Certainly looking for any feedback, obviously, that the board or the public has so that we can, refine that design a little bit and make some improvements if needed. We will be monitoring traffic as it goes through there and the activity to see if there's any changes that are warranted.
So the press release, in addition to, will you put it on social media, your Public Works page?
Yes.
And then also, Mr. Dean, the town website?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Pickpocket Dam, per your recommendation, we directed our consultant to pursue funding opportunities to support the cost of dam removal. So our consultant has identified currently 3 opportunities, and they're working on applications. One of them, which is in your packet tonight, is the application for the Coastal Zone Management Habitat Protection and Restoration Competition. So that's a grant program through NOAA with bipartisan infrastructure law funding. We're looking for a letter of support for that tonight. And then we'll be back probably at a later date for letters of support for some of the other grant opportunities that we're seeking. The department is going to be hosting a public information session on December 10th at 6 p.m. at the Exeter Library. We did send out abutter notifications to residents along the Exeter River, both in Exeter and Brentwood, and we've put that information up on our webpage as well. So we've done our best to try to get that out there and look forward to that discussion tomorrow.
What's the agenda specifically, Steve?
So they're going to basically talk about the process moving forward as far as funding and permitting for dam removal. We are going to break out into 3 breakout groups with some structured discussion to get some feedback from residents.
So are you and Mr. Vlasic?
Yep, I will be there. The town engineer will be there, and our consultants from VHB
Perfect.
will be there as well. Kristen Murphy will also be there.
Fantastic, great, thank you.
School Street Area Reconstruction Project. In October, you approved a contract for design with CMA. So we've executed that contract at this point. Survey activities are starting this week, and we are currently in the process of collecting infrastructure information that's been requested by CMA. We have a design kickoff meeting scheduled for this week as well on Wednesday. So that project will be ramping up. We will be reaching out to the neighborhood and abutters for feedback once we get into the design process. And lastly, we have the Winter Street BMP project. We awarded a contract to Northeast Earth Mechanics, who began construction late last month. New catch basins and drainage crossings within the road surface have all been installed. Installation of the infiltration system actually is beginning this week, with substantial completion expected by the middle of December. Obviously, we've had some weather over the past few days, so they're going to continue to work around that. Again, most of the work is outside the layout of the road, so that as long as the ground stays isn't frozen. We should be able to continue on that and get that wrapped up as soon as possible.
Terrific. Any questions?
I don't have any, thank you.
It's going to be a busy 2025.
It is.
I just want to reiterate what the chair said. This is an impressive list of projects that you've got us moving forward on, and it's so good to have you here, Steve. Thank you for all your work and your team's work. You're providing great leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't move. If the board, unless the board objects, since Mr. Cronin's here, can we take up the approval of the letter of support?
Yeah.
The way you
Yes.
can- Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so, as I mentioned, VHB submitted a letter of intent on behalf of the town for the Coastal Zone Management Grant. We got some very positive comments back from the grant committee. We had some discussions with VHB and New Hampshire DES. And they recommended that we include letters of support from stakeholders in our final grant application. We've been in touch with the town manager's office, who's reached out to Brentwood and our congressional delegation for letters of support. Paul has been working with Kristen and Conscom to get letters as well. But we would love to include a letter from the board for this. We drafted one for your consideration. We're happy to make any changes if you think it's warranted, or we can move to sign that and pass that along to VHB.
And this is similar to the grant that we applied for last year?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
The one last year was for fish passage. This is a slightly different program, but
Okay.
We will probably be back at a later date for that grant program as well.
Terrific. Any questions about the grant from the board? Then seeing none, I would entertain a motion for the select board to approve a letter of support for inclusion with the town's application for the NOAA Coastal Zone Management Habitat Protection and Restoration Competition application for Pickpocket Dam Removal Project.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Steve. Good night.
Good evening.
Thanks, Steve.
Chief Pizon, good evening.
Thank you very much for having me. I can't see you guys with these glasses on, so I'm going to apologize for taking them off 10,000 times on and off.
Oh, Justin, I do that all.
I can't, it's so-
If
I know, I
you've been sitting there watching me off and on, off and on.
Yeah,
I-
getting
I
old,
feel
old.
the- Yeah,
Yikes.
it's
I'll tell ya,
frustrating,
good
but here we are.
times. Good times. Anyway, I wanted to start tonight, thanks for having me, with a quick ALS update. I know that I was here end of September, middle October, end of October. Once Exeter Hospital had made announcements, they were going to sever some of the contracts with the towns regarding ALS. So behind me, Deputy Chief Brian Booth has been representing the Exeter Fire Department in a working group that consists of mainly the 125 corridor and spearheaded by Chief Knudsen from the Plastow Fire Department. And their goal is to establish a paramedic intercept service that would cater along the 125 corridor, both north and south of that. Similar to how ALS was running, but obviously they need something that's going to be a little bit more financially stable, not a losing entity. And they're pretty close. They've done their due diligence. They've brought in private ambulance services. They've brought in other individuals who've worked on projects similar in the past. And it appears they have chosen that the privatization is not the direction they want to go in. In saying that, March 20th is still the end of Exeter ALS's program. However, there's a caveat that they could end that sooner depending on how quickly this working group puts some fruit forward. However, if nothing is done by March 20th, the March 20th date still exists. It will be the end of ALS. Not awesome news for everybody, because the way it probably is going to work, how it appears right now, Exeter ALS bills for you per call. There's going to be an opt-in cost. So there'll be a cost to the community potentially a flat fee, and then a fee on top of that based on population, and then it will be a fee for transports if they transport with somebody.
Chief, when you say Exeter ALS, you're talking about Exeter Hospital.
Correct.
ALS.
Exeter Hospital ALS, not the Exeter
Thank
Fire
you.
Department. Yes, thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying. Yeah, Exeter ALS. If I say Exeter ALS, I am referring to Exeter ALS from Exeter Hospital. Obviously, that's not something we're interested in opting in on a cost basis to have regular responses to Exeter because we employ our own paramedics in this community. However, I think once they get through the point of what there'll be an opportunity just to have a conversation, because historically speaking, there will be times when whatever paramedic intercept service is not available that we may be going to, and I know that we'll be probably calling here once in a while as well, possibly depending on what the occasion is. So we're looking at a no-cost model for the town of Exeter that would probably be billed per call. So if they were to come to Exeter for whatever reason, got on an ambulance and transported someplace, we would be billed for that particular call. Very few and far between. I don't see it happening very often. However, I want to be transparent that could occur. And this coming Wednesday, I'll be representing us. Chief Booth has another commitment in Concord.
Thank
so I'll
you for
be
tuning in
Wednesday
to Exeter.
in Epping, I believe. Plastow. I'll be at Plastow Fire on Wednesday for the next meeting. So anything that's substantial at all, I'll make sure I pass along to the board. Okay. Which leads me right into the RSI portion. So I am not going to try to go through and bore you guys again with, but if you have any questions on RSI, what it is, I'll be brief. Rapid sequence intubation, the mechanism to secure a person's airway. And I was very fortunate the last time I was here to apparently have a doctor sitting behind me that was nodding the entire time I was giving my presentation, so it kind of felt pretty good. So I'm going to give you a little history and then an ask for us taking on our own RSI program. And I just want to give you some of the details that are involved in that. Assistant Chief Matheson and myself on October 24th met with Exeter Hospital with the CEO, one of their vice presidents, a legal person, and Dr. Kissel, who is the EMS coordinator. He is the medical control doctor for the region. Many things were discussed. We spoke about the ending of ALS, the transitions at the hospital, but we also spoke about RSI because one of the first people we had to get on board with this is Dr. Kissel. He has to be the one that would give us the support to move forward with a project such as this. Side note to that, we've been using Eric Yeager as was employed at Exeter Hospital. He does our monthly EMS training. Very sharp paramedic, former attorney. Once Dr. Kissel knew we were working with Eric on this project, he was like, "Oh, this is fantastic. He knows what he's doing. He's done a lot of these in the past." So we were pretty excited, and we're very fortunate to already have an agreement with him in place for our regular continuing education. This is a little bit above and beyond that. But he was super supportive. And one of the I was really pushing for is I really want Exeter Hospital to become a training partner with the Exeter Fire Department because they have an abundance of resources at the hospital we just don't have. And they were very open to that. So I was put in touch with the person who oversees their education. I'm still waiting for some clarification, but it's really turning into a partnership where I can see us using their sim lab at the hospital where they have a lot of simulation devices for doing airways and other procedures that are going to be available for us to use, which is pretty exciting. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that actually it bears fruit. We'll see what happens, but so far so good, and we're pretty excited about that. So I want to just briefly, if you have any questions on RSI in general, what it was from the last time I was in here as far as what that procedure actually does. Before I move forward, I wanted to make sure everybody had an idea what I was talking about before I throw out. I heard you mention the Darren, no acronym. So RSI I'm going to use, but it's the only one I'm going to use. So.
It's just the public knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
True statement, yes.
Yeah.
So key elements for RSI. That's on the responsibility of the agency who's looking to prop up that program. appropriate training, which obviously, continuous quality improvement program, video laryngoscopes, IV pumps, a portable ventilator, and annual ongoing training. Very fortunate. I was here, I think it was probably about a year ago at this point. Riverwoods had donated 2 video laryngoscopes to the Exeter Fire Department in the tune of about $5,000 of equipment that we already own, so I could check that box. We don't need to buy those. We already had IV pumps because a lot of our medications and our protocols already required those. The one area and the most expensive part of the program is a portable ventilator. Requires a portable ventilator that you put a person on that does the breathing for them, and it's a lot of, from compliance and lungs, it adjusts as it goes, which is amazing. They've come a long way. But there is obviously an expense to that, along with the continued education that will be required to do. So what I want to do is present to you tonight, I put in our EMS budget was solidified months ago, long before we knew this was all going to happen, this transition at Exeter Hospital. So I fine-tuned this. I met with Town Manager Dean last week. We had a one-on-one, went through everything. The following morning, I had a conversation with our Finance Director, Corey Stevens, just to make sure we were all on board with this before I came here, and everybody gave me the green light, thought we're in a good spot, we can move forward with it. I want to give you some one-time expenses, which I did put in the packet, but the portable ventilator is $12,998, and that was for a recertified ventilator, not even a brand new one, which we're comfortable with. It goes back to the manufacturer, it gets recertified. Supposedly, it's good as new. $2,200 to the Education Fourth and from True North Group. So how our continuing education works, 8 times a year, we do the 3rd Wednesday of the month, we do EMS training from 8 to noon. Where there was 16 hours required, and the way we do our training, I asked, how much can we incorporate into what we're already doing on a monthly basis? And I was able to take 4 of those hours out of the cost because he's going to be able to just put it into one of our monthly trainings. This is beneficial to everybody, not just paramedics, because the advanced EMTs also will gain from this, and they have to be proficient because they'll be the ones, in some situations, assisting the paramedic who's doing RSI. Continuing quality improvement was $1,500. We're going to have him help us our first year, but we have an EMS coordinator, Lieutenant Ryan Hart, who's a phenomenal paramedic. My goal is to help us get set up for the first year, and at the 2nd year, if things look pretty good, we'll see where we are, reevaluate. I'm hoping that we can also end the continuous quality improvement program with Eric and us take it over and manage it in-house. So I'm really trying to find a way to pare this cost down. So 16 hours are necessary above that, and at that cost comes to about $5,200 in overtime expenses. It's going to be 12 hours times 9 paramedics. I use the average overtime rate that's out there. So in your first year, the budget reflects about $1,000 difference here. My number here is a little bit, the expenses you'll see here are a little bit higher than what's in the budget because I was able to find about $1,000 in the budget to make up for it. So we're looking for, in the first year, we're looking for a number about $21,898. That is all in. That is the training, that is paying the instructor, that is buying the equipment and covering the overtime for the paramedics that's necessary. Fast forward to 2026, we'd only require 1 6-hour block of continuing education. So now we're going to move to 2026. It's only a 6-hour commitment a year in the tune of 15, we're only going to be just over $2,000 for overtime in that following year. So though the overall cost of the program is, in this big scheme of things, relatively minimal, having behind me both the assistant chief and deputy chief represents the importance and the significance of this skill, and we're here because we know how important it is. So reoccurring expenses are in the area of $5,200 a year. Not a huge amount of money. So when I look at the budget, I look back historically back to 2022. I just wanted to see how much money the EMS revolving fund was giving back to the general fund and see where we fell, because obviously we're being cognizant and aware of the fact that the more we spend it out of the EMS revolving fund, the less money is going back to the general fund to offset general taxation. So just to put in perspective, in 2023, the net income from the ambulance revolving account was $182,000. And then that year, in 2023, is the year that we increased our billing rates in April. So following year in April, we increased our billing rates. That particular year, we gave back $320,000. So it's obviously a big jump of what's going back to the general fund. So after our, any increases in the budget, adding the training in, we still anticipate at the end of this for the revenue generating portion of this for 2025, will still be in the tune of around $240,000. So we're still in that $250,000 area that will go back to the general budget after we've covered all of our EMS expenses, which I feel pretty good about. That's higher than we were in 2022, a little bit lower than we were when we increased our billing rates, but it's a pretty nice spot to be in that $250,000 area. I thought was pretty solid. Finance director agreed we're in pretty good shape with that. And just for a little historical perspective, when we had some consoles that were dying at the police and fire department, we took $100,000 out of that EMS revolving account to cover those expenses. So I'm trying to be very careful about taking money directly out of the account. I'd rather put it into a budget that you have seen, that it gives us an opportunity to let that nest egg grow again, because taking that amount of money out of there obviously was significant for us. It's not a huge account. So in a nutshell, I threw a lot at you super quick. I'm here tonight because we're looking for support to push forward with this RSI program. It's the one skill I had mentioned previously that ALS provided for us, those 9 times I had mentioned since 2023. We haven't called them since, so still 9 times. That is a life-saving intervention that we will lose, and I would like to see us be self-sufficient without the need to bring in any other paramedics from other communities or a paramedic intercept service.
I mean, I completely concur with that, and I think this is vital, but a quick question.
Sure.
So the 240,000 for this year,
Yep.
is that after the 21,898 or before?
So this year's,
So maybe I didn't follow you
No,
on that
this
one.
year's anticipated revenue is $320,000.
I'm
That's
sorry.
anticipated.
Got it.
Until the year ends and we figure out what our billing, what is actually brought in, I won't have an actual until sometime next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went from, in 2023, there wasn't very much at all in there because of the $100,000 was taken out of that. So it was under $100,000 in revenue and generated in '23. So you can see some ups and downs in it. I'm trying to be, my goal is to try to maintain that $250,000 area. I'm not sure it will happen forever, but that seems like the number where it's significant, I feel, giving back $250,000 a year. I think that's great, but it's also given us an opportunity to cover a significant amount of expenses, including 60% of our overtime. So 60% of our overtime also comes out of that budget for covering shifts. And I think that's, when we're trying to find creative ways to fund things without trying to go to the taxpayers, this is a great way to do it. It doesn't, we have a non-aggressive billing policy in Exeter. We don't send people to collections. And this has paid off. This has been a great revolving account for us, and it's allowed us to buy a lot of equipment and fund a lot of initiatives.
No, and I commend, you and the leadership team at the fire department since you've come on. I mean, just in terms of what you've tried to accomplish and accomplish a lot, and keeping the budget as tight as you can. I mean, I'm thankful for that. And so it's 21,898 is a one-time. That would be the first year, and then you're estimating around 5,200
Correct.
ongoing. Okay.
That's correct.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I really appreciate this level of detail in the budgeting. It enhances the perception of transparency, and you're doing a great job. You
Yeah, I
and your
appreciate
team
that.
are
Thank
doing
you.
a great job. We've never had this level of detail before, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I will give credit because Chief Wilkin he taught me a significant amount of doing this. A lot of this is from the previous chief.
But Chief, you're communicating it
Thank
to us, and that didn't always happen. It's not a critique, it's just, I'm thankful it's happening now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
No, the only comment I have isn't from a board perspective, but The hospital has reached out to state representatives about having a meeting to catch us up, and I would love to talk to you before that happens
Absolutely.
and get a little bit more on these details.
I think our meeting, I'm going to say, kind of happened like that as well. We were more summoned to the hospital, but
Right.
while I was there, I made sure I came with my own motives and wants. So we came prepared to
Yep.
we came with our own asks. But yeah, we were summoned, and they were pretty adamant about us coming up there. So yeah, but I would anytime.
Okay. But I really appreciate what you've gone through to let or make Exeter be, have the tools that we need, no matter what the hospital does.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's the important part of it. We want to be self-sufficient. We don't want to rely on any other communities to come to Exeter and provide a paramedic service for us.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I'll just second what Julie just said. I don't need to repeat it, but it's important. I'm not happy with an increase. I never am, but I see the importance of this.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Nancy.
Mr. Dean, what action are you looking for this evening from the board? Formally, a motion or just an acceptance of increasing the budget?
I'm not looking for a motion per se on this. I just think that a
Support.
concurrence from the
Yep.
board that we can implement this program will move it forward as it's been laid out with the $21,898 all-in cost
So this will get rolled into the budget, Russ?
into the EMS fund.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, so that's why we're okay with this.
that's where it will be.
Okay,
Are there any objections from the board?
I have none.
No, again, thank you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you very
And
much.
thank you for the detail and
Yeah.
explaining it the way you did. It's very much appreciated.
You know-
A lot of numbers, a lot of, while we're thinking about increases and how we're going to pay for things and trying to keep people, not upset about the tax bill. So,
Yeah.
it is important. Health.
It
Health
is.
is important.
We find it's very important, but I know sometimes I talk fast, and I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there, so please, anytime there's any questions, if I didn't answer anything tonight, please reach out
Yeah,
afterwards.
of course.
No, I thought it was
Yeah.
very detailed, easy
Yeah.
to
I'm
understand.
throwing a lot at you.
And I appreciated having
Yeah.
the following year's numbers too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to make sure it wasn't, I wanted to make sure people didn't realize it was going to be a $22,000 commitment forever.
Forever, yeah.
And it's not a lot. In the scheme of things, an over $4 million budget would,
It's an unfortunate circumstance that we find ourselves in, and I appreciate your due diligence
Absolutely.
in trying to cover the coverage.
we all appreciate.
And being
that. Thank you.
proactive from day one, once the
Yeah.
news came out, and being, how did you put it, blunt?
Yeah.
When you had to be?
Oh,
and-
oh,
Was that the
yeah.
word you used?
Yeah, it was blunt. I think
I like that.
I think Assistant Chief Matheson said I carried on that when we met in person as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as soon as the announcement was out, you were on it. So
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
recognize the significant impact it could have on Exeter, so we wanted to make sure we were ahead of it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something, it's not a wait and see. That's let's be in the driver's seat and be part of the working group from day one, even though it doesn't necessarily affect us directly. There's a chance it could, so we want to make sure
Yeah,
we're
thank
there.
you.
If you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu.
That's right, so we want to be present, so we're making sure we are in every one of those meetings.
We'll come back with updates
I
if
will,
if you would,
absolutely.
and whatever we can do, let us know.
I will.
While you're here, we talked about this briefly in our last meeting, but since you're here, I want to thank you and your leadership team and the entire department for the work you did during the fires. I understand there were other communities that helped out in many different ways, but I just want to thank your leadership and thank the department for around-the-clock work that you did, and also for your communication with the board, keeping us updated. Very much appreciated, so thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, gentlemen, as well.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, and people I talked to in town, we learned a lot more than we thought we knew about fires and how you have to access them and the underground part of that. And I will tell you, I follow fires, across the country when those things happen, but when you start to smell it in your own home and hallway, it does have a different perspective. It surprised me, so I just wanted to say, and a lot of people reached out to me personally, and I asked them to reach out to the fire department to express their thanks.
That's great. Thank you.
Because it was an educational thing too, it wasn't just,
The emergency.
we're out there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of communication on your Facebook page and things like that, and I think it was really good for the community to be able to get those updates directly that way.
I appreciate that.
So
Yeah, I
thank
try.
you.
I want to make sure I'd rather give you too much than not enough. Let's give you a little perspective. So at the end of that, the state obviously was here. It was in Exeter mostly, so we were tasked with retrieving the hoses, bringing them back to the station, cleaning them, hanging them, rolling them. 7,500 feet worth of hose. We cleaned, the men and women of the Exeter Fire Department cleaned, hung, dried, and rolled, and the state picked it up last week, so.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. The work didn't end when the fire ended. There was a significant amount of cleanup out there. Deputy Chief Fritz isn't here tonight. He spent a lot of time out there. I'm happy to say on the Wednesday, I wasn't in the office. I had my stuff on. I was out there digging holes, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it
The
was.
work was tremendous.
All
Thank
hands
you.
on deck, so, yeah.
Thank
Very
you.
much. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy your vacation.
Thanks.
Comparatively, you did not talk fast.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
All right. And our last discussion item this evening, we have our Finance Director back up, Mr. Corey Stevens, who has some ideas of how we can utilize the rest of our ARPA money before the end of the year.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Thank
Good
you very
night.
much.
Good night.
Good night.
So we started with 1.603 million, and we're down to $27,390 of
Good.
ARPA. So the challenge at that level, I'll call it a challenge, if you allow me, is, what do you do with it to stay within the spirit of what you all wanted to do, which was to have things have a community impact, leverage the money where we could, but really give back to the residents and be able to show them how we're using the money. So we've got essentially 3 projects here that I've been working with DPW and then the media and IT teams to come up with. The first is pretty straightforward. Mr. Cronin spoke about the Swayze Park being opened up. The gates that they had installed this week or last week were $8,700. And we would like to use ARPA for those gates. We have another funding source, obviously, before, because we approved the project. This is, again, shoehorning and using final sums of money to, where it's appropriate. So that's the first one. The second one is an upgrade to AV in this building. The wheelwright room, which you often use and gets used by committees to do just this, is not really set up to video and record the way we do up here, and we'd like to do that. I worked with Bob Glowacki in EXTV and media, and also Steve Bailey and Andy Swanson to just come up with this plan. And the plan includes doing audio downstairs and video. But the nice thing about the video part is these 4 cameras in this room are getting close to end of life, but they're appropriate for the size of the space and the type of need we would have down in the wheelwright. For instance, zooming. Here they zoom a lot. Down there you don't have as much distance and depth to do that. So these 4 cameras, or probably just 3 of them, maybe even 2 of them, would work well down there. So if we replace the 4 up here, we can leverage that and bring those downstairs. The package would also include a drop microphone from the ceiling, and also, importantly, the ability for EXTV to manage meetings like they do this one here in that room from across the street where they do things, rather than setting up a tripod camera
That'd be
and
nice.
that type of thing. So it's going to make that room downstairs more usable. I know we video a lot, so we want to video a lot, so that'll help down there. The total cost of that project, and we looked at some different options, and we kind of pared it down to just get that room done. And if we can change cameras up here, that's great. So that's what we opted for. That project comes to $13,600. That includes the audio, the visual, and then the electrical that work from DPW that would go along with that. I can keep talking, or you guys can ask questions along the way. I don't want to.
I'm good with everything you've talked
Yeah.
about.
The final project kind of piggybacks on what Mr. Kelly was talking about when he mentioned the IT having to be put into the budget for $40,000. So we're going to be making some changes to our IT environment as it relates to public safety next year. And the actual cost of that is more like $68,000. We put $40,000 in the budget, but we made the decision as a group, as E-Team, that we didn't want to put all of it in. So I asked the fire, police, and IT to look at their current year budgets for ways that we could pull some of that cost that will be part of next year, but we need to buy equipment and that type of thing and get things done now from their current year budgets to try to get it done without putting the whole $68,000 in the FY25 budget. So that's what we did. It includes buying hardware. It includes buying some services from our IT vendor to get some initial work done. And so what's left is about $5,090 that we would need or could use from ARPA. And essentially, what's left and what I can use, I am using towards this project. And that would zero us out for ARPA. We have an obligation to obligate this money by the end of the year. We have to spend it by the end of 2026. The nice thing about all of these projects, one, I've already got the invoice for the Swayze Gates. Bob, before he left for vacation, introduced me to the vendors who I can say, please order these pieces, and that'll be done. And then we can execute on the IT and the hardware, the IT hardware and the services for next year very easily as well. So they're all projects that we don't have to spend a lot of time, what's it going to cost? Can we get a vendor? That type of thing. It's just plug and play. So that's the proposal.
And as Mr. Stevens said, it's important that this evening the board obligates the money because they need to do their due diligence before the end of the year, so the 23rd would be too late.
I am so proud of the whole process that we've gone through with this. We've spent the money on what the board wanted to spend the money on. Corey, thank you all, the E-Team, everyone came to us with the numbers, and we're at zero.
Yep.
We're at zero. I mean, just thank you. I really am impressed with how this whole process has worked out.
I think in the end, we have a total of about 17 or 18 projects when you roll them all out. We spent $670 on siphons a year or so ago.
It was
a good
needed.
move.
We did,
Wow.
we did some bonuses, retention bonuses for
Yeah.
our public safety folks for over a 2-year period, which was nice.
Planet Playground?
Planet Playground.
We did protective, the PFAF equipment, we contributed to that through ARPA. And then we did some nuts and bolts things, DPW work, Pickpocket Dam, Winter Street BMP, Tree Committee. So yeah, it runs
Yeah.
the gamut, but we're there, to your point.
Yeah. I don't have all the names of all the projects, so thank you for bringing that. Yeah, I think it was so important that I think we're all on the same page about what we thought was important to do with that money,
Yep.
those funds.
A plan we do have is to actually put the list of projects in the town report this year
Oh, good.
to show exactly where we spent our
I
ARPA
like
funds.
that.
Because the goal of the board from day one, when the ARPA funds became available as a result of the pandemic, was to use these funds ideally for projects or initiatives that folks could look at, in years to come and say, that's what we used our federal funding for. And I think for the most part, we came very close to accomplishing that goal. And again, the E-Team was instrumental, particularly Corey, you and Melissa, I used to call the ARPA czars. I mean, they were on top of it. Corey always had a balance whenever we needed it, and I think we can be happy with what we've done for the town with this.
In particular, I love this AV Tech upgrade for the the wheelwright room.
Yeah.
Increases transparency on our meetings, makes those meetings in that room accessible real time as opposed to being taped and put up later. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic. It's a great idea.
It's also a lot of curb appeal down there. I mean, it's the first room you come to, and a lot of people spend time in there in meetings. And so to make it a little bit more seamless for everybody to get what needs to get done. We're also going to clean it up a little bit as well, which is me giving some commentary on what I think the room looks like now. I mean, there's a card table. We're gonna do
It
some
does
things to
need a
just
little
clean up wires
refreshing. Yeah.
and just
It does. It has needed that for a while.
because I think that also throws people off when they come in and need to use the room. You know, like, oh, what do I do? When I pick what remote am I using? And so we'll try to make it a little bit more user friendly as well.
Great. It's a great idea.
Thank
We
you.
thought about having some signs made so when people are in meetings that they can put quiet meeting in progress. So when people are coming in the door and talking,
We have,
especially if we're going to put a mic down from the ceiling, I think people see the light on, they might even
something
hear
up.
people in the room.
Yeah.
yeah, we can take that up.
It wouldn't hurt, I don't think, to ask, to just have a few signs that people can put out at
Yeah.
night that say,
Yeah.
quiet, please, meeting in progress.
You know, Andy Swanson mentioned the other day the idea of a plaque for that room that said, you know, AV paid for through ARPA funds 2020 Blanc. Might be something to think
Yeah.
about as well.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Something that says we, ARPA's been here.
Any other questions for Mr. Stevens?
No, other than thank you. I wanted to stand up and applaud. I did, I'm serious. I was kind of chuckling to myself because this has been how long have we been going through the opera funds? This process? When did we get them?
3 years?
21, since
Right.
21.
So,
Yeah, 2021.
well done. Well done,
3 years.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then seeing no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to authorize the remaining ARPA funds to be expended as follows. $8,700 for the Swayze turnaround gates, $13,600 for the AV Tech upgrades to the town offices, and $5,090 for IT hardware and services, and to further authorize the town manager or their designee to sign any appropriate documents.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Corey, thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Okay, moving along to regular business. Madam Clerk, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve an abatement for MAP 110, Lot 2, Unit 115, in the amount of $91.05 for the tax year 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve a tax abatement for MAP 110, Lot 2, Unit 14, in the amount of $160 for the tax year 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve an abatement for MAP 110, Lot 2, Unit 89, in the amount of $166.04 for the tax year 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move to approve a tax abatement for MAP 110, Lot 2, Unit 22, in the amount of $91.29 for the tax year 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve a veteran's credit for MAP 47, Lot 8, Unit 2418, in the amount of $500 for the tax year 2025.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to approve a veteran's credit for MAP 64, Lot 91, in the amount of $500 for tax year 2025.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I move to approve a veteran's credit for MAP 80, Lot 7, Unit 2, in the amount of $500 for the tax year 2025.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We did our permits and approvals. Mr. Dean?
Okay, just a few things tonight. One is collective bargaining, obviously, is an ongoing process, and we've continued to meet with our unions. Very productive meetings and have been going well, so anticipate more information and probably an update for the board on the 23rd of December.
Great, okay.
So we'll have an update for you then.
Thank you.
We worked with the fire department to work out the Novak room capacity, and just to report on that, it's 48 people with chairs in here and 103 standing room only. So we asked the fire department to actually post that as the official capacity, so people would know that. With meetings, sometimes we get overflow, and so that issue came up, so we worked to resolve that. Been having conversations with Keegan Associates about the next steps in their endeavors, as we know that there is money left in that account that needs to be spent as well. So they have given us a proposal on that includes executive coaching. It involves meeting with our Public Works Department, because we did have a new director at the time that the initial steps of the review was done. Also following up with some town departments as far as some of the changes that have been made and how those are working out. And also would like to interview the board members again to gauge progress on the different things that we've been working on. So we have that proposal in hand. We'll be following up on that with you.
Great.
So. Let's see, we held an in-person operations meeting on the 6th that was well attended. That was one suggestion that was made, that we do on occasion have operations meetings in person, so we did do that, and that went very well. I wanted to also say thank you to the Christmas parade organizers, Beth Dupel and the Elves, that put together such a great parade and holiday block party, especially Parks and Recreation, who spearheaded, along with the chamber, the holiday block party last Thursday night. That was a big success. And also just to let the board know and the town know in general that there's a giving tree at Parks and Recreation to help fund youth programming. And so we've been talking about actually bringing that tree over to the town offices to give it a little bit more visibility. So we're working on that with Greg Bisson and his staff. And then just a reminder on the schedule that the offices are closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and closed half a day on December 31st and a full day on January 1st for New Year's. And I think that's it.
I'd like to just add our thanks to the police and fire departments, as well as the Public Works Department, for their work during the Christmas parade Saturday.
Yes.
So, any questions for Mr. Dean? Selectman Gilman.
Yeah, I have a couple things that are really not important right now, but I want to put them on a kind of tickle list.
Yep.
One is to look into whether the town can and/or should have its own liquor license. And I'm bringing it up because of a situation that I know of where somebody wants to provide wine and cheese, but the town committee is sponsoring the event.
Okay.
So we're separating out the two units so that it's just something to consider. And the other one now I've forgotten, so there you go.
Okay.
Well,
We can work
Wasn't
on
that
that.
important?
if you remember, kick me, and we'll pause. Select Board Committee reports. Selectwoman Belanger, please.
So while I'm thinking of it, we haven't had a Parks and Rec advisory, the Recreation Advisory Board, meeting, and it's this Wednesday. So anybody that wants to get their Santa letters out, I can't give you dates, but please make sure you get them in and check the Parks and Rec website for the last day they're due. But our mailbox is out on the town hall.
That's right.
Yes, I think I know the date, but I don't want to say it and it be wrong. So get those letters for Santa. So I have a very short report, and that is that the planning board, at our last meeting, I said that we had a site walk scheduled for Riverwoods on December 5th, and we did when I said it, but it was canceled. So that has been rescheduled to this Thursday, December 12th at 8 a.m. And then the Riverwoods, that particular application will be heard December 19th. Then tomorrow night, as was mentioned, we have a pickpocket information meeting tomorrow night at the library, 6 o'clock. Watch your parking. Use our municipal parking lots because the library will still be open. And Housing Advisory Committee won't be meeting this month. It would typically have been Friday. So our next meeting is January 10th, and then the Arts Committee hasn't met for a few months, and that next meeting is January 21st. And that's it from me.
Great, thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
My committees have taken November and December off, so don't really have anything to say.
All right.
And I haven't thought of the other item.
Okay,
no.
well,
I have nothing to report.
Okay.
But I have many meetings coming up.
okay, good. Selectman Chartran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a meeting on the 2nd of December for the Sustainability Advisory Committee a week ago tonight. All of our new members were there.
Great.
We had a quorum. An alternate was appointed to fill an empty slot. The regular member wasn't there. It all went great.
Perfect.
And we had a great meeting. And Kristen Murphy asked me to thank you all for appointing new members. And I do have a conflict on Wednesday evening. The Conservation Commission meeting was moved from Tuesday, which it normally takes place, to Wednesday because of the dam removal meeting on Tuesday. Kristen wanted Concom members to be able to attend that if they're interested. So I have a Water and Sewer Advisory Committee on the 11th at 6:30 and a Concom at 7. Who is my alternate on the Concom?
I believe I am, but I have a Recreation Advisory Committee meeting that night.
I will let Kristen know that there will not be a select board
Well, I can
member.
be I'm at the Water and Sewer.
I would like to attend. I missed the last meeting, and there's a number of requests for abatements, and I think that's a better use of my time.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a quorum?
Well, you're not a voting member. I mean, maybe if you just
Of the
let Kristen
Concom?
know.
Yeah, that was my
That
thought.
there won't be representation, that if she has anything that you can answer
Yeah.
beforehand, and then certainly you can get briefed after.
Yeah. And there's a full round of requests for abatement for Water and Sewer Advisory, and I have definite opinions about that, and I'd like to be there.
Understand, yeah.
Are you good with
Which you're a
that?
voting member of that.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay. I will let Kristen know.
Okay.
And thank you, Nancy, for,
Yeah, I apologize, and but I will tell you.
I did
Kristen
not give
really-
you a lot of notice. I apologize.
No, I would have if I could, but Kristen, before when I've had to miss it, has just done a quick memo to me, for me, so,
Great.
Okay, that's good.
yeah.
That's a good idea.
She's been great about that.
Okay. That's it?
That's my report.
Okay, I did not have any meetings. I'll be attending tomorrow night. There's no correspondence. The board calendar, again, December 23rd is our next meeting, followed by January 6th, and then our budget hearing on January 21st.
I thought of my other thing.
Go ahead.
I'm ready.
I was ready to
Just
filibuster.
before
till-
the gavel. quick
Yeah,
girl.
I know. It came up because of something I saw on TV that I thought should be shared with a particular committee and then the community at large. But I want to get the ideas and the legalities of, and if we want to even start with promotion, but to have on, in this case, particularly the Concom website or sustainability, recommendations for something to watch or read. I don't know if we want to go down that road because you can get a long list together for things that should be watched. So just wanted to get opinions of your thoughts. So think about it. That's it.
Yeah, I was trying to remember, I think when I was in the Conservation Commission, there were a few times that Kristen would recommend documentaries
I mean,
or
on
something.
our website.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, it has happened a few times verbally,
Yeah.
so.
Have a conversation with Kristen?
Yeah, I think we need to sort of vet that
Yeah.
pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
To keep ourselves in a certain position
Yes.
as town government, that I think would be important as part of the process.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I can understand that it can get greatly problematic.
Yeah.
Yes, it could be really bad.
But maybe just the verbal communication is
Yeah.
what we should stick to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we still have we're still looking at tweaking the policies and procedures, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Unless there's any other business, I'd entertain a motion to enter into non-public under 91A32A.
So moved.
Second,
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please.
Selectman Chartran,
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan,
Aye.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
And clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. The board will be moving into non-public. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.